All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to our webinar, Dark Skies of Gunnison Gorge National Conservation Area. My name is Sarah and I'm the Operations Director at Colorado Canyons Association. If you're not familiar with CCA, we're a nonprofit based out of Grand Junction, and our mission is to foster community stewardship, education, and awareness of the 3 national conservation areas in Colorado. Those are McInnes Canyons, Dominguez Escalante, and of course, Gunnison Gorge, NCA. So every year we get thousands of kids and adults outside for education events out on the public lands. We do volunteer projects, restoration projects, and cleanups. And then we also provide additional resources for community members to enjoy their public lands just a little bit more. And these webinars are part of that. So we're here tonight with Ed France, who is the NCA manager of Gunnison Gorge, and Aaron Watson, who has several roles. He is the Director of Dark Skies Paonia, and he's also he's the regional level as Western Colorado Regional Coordinator of the Colorado chapter of the International Dark Skies Association. So basically, he's an expert on all things dark skies, and we're really excited to hear his presentation. I'll leave about 10 minutes at the end of this webinar for any questions that folks have. So make sure to type those in the chat box or enter them into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. I'll go ahead and hand it over to Ed to give a brief introduction, and then after that, Aaron will get started on his presentation. So Ed, go ahead.
Sure, thanks, Sarah. And really thankful for Colorado Canyons Association and Aaron to jump in and help guide us through this project. Seems like my whole federal career has had something to do with the night skies. Back in the day, I did night sky programs out on the rim of Bryce Canyon and really loved that. And it's so impressive to get out in the public lands in a place where it's truly dark with a group of people who don't get that experience every day. And it just really shows you how valuable it is. Those of you that learned about this webinar through social media, through the Colorado Canyons Association posts, you saw our teepee down in the Gunnison Gorge. They're in Ute Park, probably the darkest place in the gorge. And the skies from down there are just phenomenal. So super glad to be taking this opportunity to see if we can make the requirements to get the status of this the International Dark Sky Park. Shouldn't be too difficult since we don't have any electricity in the Gunnison Gorge and no artificial light sources. My lead river ranger Rooster showed me a lantern that he found abandoned the other day and said that was the one light source. So we're in good shape here and really glad to have you guys that are interested in this project. And certainly Aaron, really glad to have you here, and I'm looking forward to your presentation. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ed. And thanks, Sarah. It's great to be here. I'm just going to kind of close this out. Okay. So my name is Aaron Watson, and I'm with Dark Skies Paonia, and I'm also the Western Colorado Regional Coordinator for the International Dark Sky Association Colorado chapter. Yeah, a bit of a mouthful. So these two roles, you know, with Paonia working in the town, and then on in the more regional scale, the dark sky. Yeah, I have a lot of experience recently, and I'm really up to date on what's happening. So, especially around Colorado. So let's dive into the presentation here, and let's talk about dark skies and the Gunnison Gorge National Conservation Area. All right, here we go. So first slide here. I'd like to start out with the regional sky map. And so this is a light pollution map of the region. It's taken by satellite. And what we can see here are these brighter regions are the places where there's the most light pollution. So like Grand Junction, obviously on this map is the brightest spot. Delta and Montrose here. And here we can see if if we kind of zoom in, the Gunnison Gorge National Conservation Area and the Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park are next to each other. And so there is a bit of sky glow coming from the metropolitan areas of Delta and Montrose, big cities there, at least in this part of the state. If we look at the legend, kind of what these numbers mean. So, you know, the brighter, we're looking at sky brightness. So a 20.6, that's kind of in our cities, whereas when we get out into the more rural areas, you know, we're looking at up to 22, and these are magnitudes per arc second squared. That's the actual measurement. So, you know, around Gunnison Gorge, we're in this lighter blue area. So we're around 21.8 or so as our reading, which is really good. That's one of the darker places, you know, in the world. If you look at a map of a bigger area, even like the United States, it's all lit up in color. So we're really lucky that we have these pristine areas here in Western Colorado. So let's just focus on the Gunnison Gorge specifically. So this is the Black Canyon, the Gunnison, Kirakanti, and Gunnison Gorge Visitor Guide. Here's some images from here. The actual NCA, National Conservation Area, is 64,000 acres, with the wilderness area about 17,700 acres. And so we have really beautiful canyon lands in the river area, nice place for rafting, a lot of juniper, sage brush on the slopes, really amazing wildlife. So this is a really beautiful area and part of the state. And, you know, the river being the main part. So if we were to look at some of the major uses of the Gunnison Gorge, obviously the river and the rapids, you know, floating trips, rafting, kayaking, also fishing is really great in the Gunnison Gorge. And so, you know, as you can see here, the darker green area is the wilderness, whereas the lighter green is the rest of the conservation area. And the wilderness really follows along the river course. And here down in the bottom corner, we can see the Black Canyon. So the Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park is already a dark sky park, and it's right next to the Gunnison Gorge. So that would be a great partnership to have both areas as dark sky. Another use of the Gunnison Gorge, so this is more on the southwest side. We have off-highway vehicle trails, as well as horseback riding, mountain biking, and hiking. So this is, you know, there's these two areas, the Peach Valley open area and the Flat Top open area, which are OHV skills park here in Peach Valley. So this is a place where people can go and ride their dirt bikes, or, you know, do what they want, hike, ride the horses. And there's this cool skills park in Peach Valley, which I thought was really neat, a place where you can go practice hitting some jumps and even some other terrain features over here. I like to look in the background of this picture. I haven't actually been here, but if you look in the background, you can see a really nice flat open area that could be really great for star viewing. So we'll talk about that a little later with our outreach events. But I just wanted to kind of talk about a few things that the Gunnison Gorge is used for. All right, so now let's focus more on why dark skies in the Gunnison Gorge. So here's a beautiful picture on the Colorado Canyons website. And this shows a nice, beautiful, you can kind of really get a sense of the Gunnison Gorge here with the nice chasm going through, with the river in the middle, and then the slopes and the juniper slopes on the sides. Also really beautiful skies, really big skies in this area. So what is dark skies? Why dark skies? And, you know, the biggest thing is night sky conservation is another word for dark skies. So we're here to preserve and protect the night sky, the view of the night sky, the clear view, especially of it. And there's not only the view, but there's all these other aspects that come along with that conservation, including conserving energy. It's good for the ecology, like the wildlife and nature. Public and environmental health are really important when it comes to dark skies. And there's also traditional and cultural uses. So we'll look at kind of some ancestral uses of dark skies as well. And then another piece, which is really interesting, is the recreation. And so what we have is, it's called Astro Tourism. That's the branch of tourism that goes along with the recreation. And so with the dark skies, this is a really cool element we can add to a lot of the recreation going on, because a lot of the recreation right now is done during the day. And so we add this element of nighttime recreation. The national parks have talked about this and call it half the park is after dark. And so that's something we can also promote here in Gunnison Gorge. Right now, Colorado is gaining a big reputation for great stargazing. We're really getting on the map right now, and we'll talk about all the dark sky places in Colorado here in just a moment. But first, let's talk about the ecological impacts of light pollution. You know, our friends, our wildlife, our animal friends and insects, you know, are really important to the health and environmental health of, you know, the planet, but also these protected areas, you know, they're a great place for wildlife to be protected as well. And there's been a number of studies that links light pollution to insect decline. And that's, you know, when you see a light and all those moths crowding around it, you know, that's not good for the insect population. Fireflies are especially impacted by light pollution. And so, you know, they're using light to communicate. And so when they're in light pollution areas, they're susceptible. They're not going to survive as easily. And so we're seeing a decline in the fireflies around light pollution. Another insect that's really important is monarch butterflies. So they're migrating and the light pollution affects their migration. Speaking of migration, light kills birds. And there's a big campaign going on right now. It's actually Lights Out Colorado. It's the Audubon Society has teamed up with the International Dark Sky Association. And we're working on a program to help the birds by encouraging people to shield and turn off their lights at night. And light pollution also affects our aquatic friends and amphibians. So tadpoles, frogs, fish, turtles are all species affected by light pollution. So it's really across the board ecological impacts on the wildlife, and there's also, you know, human health impacts. So you know, the best thing we can do is educate people about, hey, this is really a problem and it's getting worse. So that's kind of what we're doing. And having the Gunnison Gorge at the dark sky park, we can help educate people as to, you know, why it's important to protect these species. So I just want to talk a quick moment about the Lights Out Colorado, this partnership between the International Dark Sky Association and the Audubon Society. And I want to highlight this because I was looking at the Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park, and they have a bird list. I think it's a yearly bird count. And so on this list are over 100 birds that are frequent to, you know, very rare sighted in the park. So I imagine the Gunnison Gorge is, you know, since it's right next door, has a similar haven for birds. So, you know, this is a great reason to preserve the night sky here, to help protect the migrating birds. 80% of migrating birds migrate at night. So I didn't know that until I learned about this partnership. I think that's, you know, amazing. There's literally a river of birds going over during the migration seasons, and we don't even really know about it. So pretty cool. Also, these other nocturnal animals in the gorge, I highlighted a few of them. This is from the Geology of Gunnison Gorge National Conservation Area. It talks specifically about the ecology. But bobcats, coyotes, mountain lions, these animals are nocturnal for the most part, and they hunt at night. And so there's been studies linking essentially the light pollution affects the predator-prey balance. So it's really interesting to look at. There's a bunch of studies done on that, and generally it's not good for the balance. It makes the predator-prey balance out of balance. And then some other nocturnal species, this diminutive kit fox, which specifically is found at the Gunnison Gorge, super cute. And then this river otter, which apparently was reintroduced in 1986. So these are nocturnal species that have some effects from light pollution because they're nocturnal. All right, now let's talk about the night sky cultural resource in the Gunnison Gorge, and, you know, just for dark skies in general. So we have a picture here of Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night. You know, obviously that there wasn't a lot of light pollution back then. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had that amazing view and couldn't have made that great picture. And that just kind of points out how throughout history, so many of us have been inspired and motivated by the starry night sky. And it's been such a source of inspiration for humanity. So that's something we really want to protect. And, you know, having the Gunnison Gorge and national parks as places we can go and still connect with the sky is really important for humanity and for our culture. And it's also seen in ancient cultures. So for example, Chaco Canyon, it's very famous because they were very aligned with the celestial objects, especially the sun and moon. They would make their buildings aligned with the rising sun and the solstice. They had the sun dagger, which was this really super cool calendar to measure the phases of the moon and the lunar standstills. So the ancient people, our ancestors from all cultures, had star stories and connected to the night sky. In many cultures throughout the world, the Milky Way was known as the celestial river. So it's essentially a river in the sky. And so, you know, Gunnison Gorge, the main part of it is the river going down, so we can make that connection. And specifically in the Gunnison Gorge, here in the middle is Eagle Rock Shelter. And so, you know, this is an area that's been inhabited for a very long time, for I think it's like 10,000 years, there's record, at least thousands of years of people inhabiting that area. And so, you know, I'm just fascinated to wonder what their star stories were, how they used the sky to navigate and for, you know, hunting rituals and ceremonies and things like that. And so here in the Gunnison Gorge, because we have these ancestral lands, you know, we have an opportunity to kind of rekindle this connection to the night sky. Okay, now let's talk about Astro Tourism, so the recreation side of things. I just put this slide together today. It's kind of a conglomeration of a bunch of newspaper headlines. We've had a number of mentions recently. These have all been in the last year. So we've had a couple stories in the Denver Post. The Men's Journal has picked up on our dark skies here, specifically in Western Colorado. National Geographic did a great story on dark skies. There's a stargazing road trip that the Colorado Tourism Office has put forth, and it's called Experience Tonight, and it won the 2019 award for like best stargaze, or not best stargazing, but for the tourism road trips. They have a number of road trips, and so the Colorado Stargazing is a recent one that came out, and it highlights a number of different dark sky areas around Colorado, Western Colorado specifically. So this is really exciting. Colorado's really gaining, you know, a reputation as a dark sky haven, as a place people can come to see the stars. And so, you know, we really do have amazing world-class night skies here, and definitely worth protecting. So the Gunnison Gorge is going to be a great area, a great place to have this and have tourism and astro-tourism. All right, so let's talk about the dark sky places in Colorado. This is a current list. So there's a number of communities as well as parks. So the Colorado Dark Skies communities, as of right now, the first ones designated were West Cliff and Silver Cliff in 2015. Then Norwood came on in 2019, Ridgeway 2020, and just recently announced a few weeks ago was Crestone. So they just got their certification. As far as dark sky parks, you can see there's a number on here. Hovenweep National Park in 2014 was our first one. Then Black Canyon of the Gunnison, so that's right next door, 2015. Dinosaur National Monument, 2019. Great Sand Dunes, 2019. Jackson Lake State Park, that's on the Front Range, actually, east of the Front Range. It's kind of in the plains, in 2020. This interesting 60-acre dark sky reserve, Slumgullion Center, outside of Lake City, that just came on board. And then Mesa Verde National Park in 2021. And then at the bottom here, there's been talk of a couple dark sky reserves in the works. So we have one Montrose West End. So that's kind of the Norwood Ridgeway area, as well as the Sangre de Cristo area. And so reserves are really big swaths of land that are going to be designated as dark sky, including towns, parts of unincorporated counties, to public lands. It's really these big swaths that work together to make dark sky reserves. So that's really exciting to have those coming up as well. So I want to talk about the parks a little bit. The national parks have really taken the lead across the country in preserving the night sky. And so here's a nice artistic versions of all of our national parks with dark sky designations. And it's the half the park is after dark theme. And so you can see the Milky Way, see the stars in each one. The only one that isn't an actual dark sky park is Rocky Mountain National Park up here. So they are not officially certified as of yet. But from what I hear, there is that process is in the works. I just don't know how far along they are. And the only one on here not done by Tyler Nordgren is the Mesa Verde. You can see it's got a little different color scheme in there, but still a beautiful night sky theme to that. So this is really cool artistic representation of what we're doing. And I'd love to see one of these for Gunnison Gorge. I think that'd be really cool. All right, so let's kind of stop in at Black Canyon National Park. So, you get these, once you become a dark sky park, you get these beautiful Milky Way pictures for your park. Just incredible. And half the park is after dark. So, 2015, this is great. This has really been holding it down in the area for the dark sky. There's the Black Canyon Astronomical Society, who does a number of events at the Black Canyon National Park. And so this is really great to have just next door, a dark sky park, and hopefully the Gunnison Gorge and the Black Canyon can work together to help keep this whole gorge area preserved. So this is kind of a lot of words on here. I'll just touch on this briefly. What this is management policies. And so this is just showing that the National Park Service is really taking the lead. They are really embracing the dark sky policies and putting it into many levels of their management policies. They have a Lightscape management plan, which manages lights throughout all national parks throughout the country. And that's pretty ahead of the curve compared to most other public lands. They even have like a night sky team that goes around to the different parks to take dark sky measurements and document the effects of light pollution. So pretty cool what the national parks are doing, and we can learn from them and take what works for these other projects we're working on. So let's kind of focus in a little more on the details of BLM. So Parashant National Monument in Arizona, this was the first BLM area to be designated as a dark sky park. This is next to the Grand Canyon, and so they worked with the National Park Service at the Grand Canyon to get this certification. Another BLM site is Massacre Rim Dark Sky Sanctuary in Nevada. And so the Friends of Nevada Wilderness worked with the BLM to create this dark sky park. Or it's actually a sanctuary, which is, the next level up from a park, because they have, some of the most pristine dark skies in probably the whole world in Nevada, which is pretty amazing. We're not quite that good here in Colorado, but we're pretty close. So these are kind of like Massacre Rim and Parashant show us that it is possible to make a BLM area a dark sky park, and they can kind of show us how they did it. And so when we look at the Gunnison Gorge, this is really the nuts and bolts of the certification process, is looking at the BLM management policies for the Gunnison Gorge. And so as far as I can tell, the research I did, we have a number of documents that are the management policies for the Gunnison Gorge. We have the resource management plan specifically for the Gunnison Gorge. Then we have the BLM policy manual 6220, which is for all national monuments, national conservation areas, and similar designations. Included in that is a visual resource management plan. And then the piece that we add as dark skies is the Lightscape management plan. So that's the piece that specifically is regulations around lighting. And so I just wanted to read this real quick. This is from the policy manual 6220. It says, facilities within monuments and NCAs, including utility, water, and electrical supply lines, will be designed and sited in a manner that minimizes impacts to the objects and values in the area's scenic characteristics and conforms to best management practices for visual resource management and the BLM guidelines for a quality built environment. So this one paragraph here is kind of the main paragraph that we would use when including this Lightscape management plan, because it talks about the area's scenic characteristics as well as conforming to the visual resource management of the area. So that was just kind of the nuts and bolts of exactly how we can integrate the Lightscape management plan into the BLM policies. All right, so I want to talk real quick about exactly what does it take to become a dark sky park. So what is the certification process? What do we need to do to make this happen? So the first major thing in many of these certification processes is a Lightscape management plan. So this is the actual regulations around lighting. So as Ed said earlier in the talk, there's no electricity in the Gunnison Gorge. There's no artificial lighting at the moment on any of the public lands. So, a Lightscape management plan is going to be pretty easy to get started. And, it would mainly focus on future threats. If there were a building, how would it be managed? But it's not going to be hard because there aren't already a lot of lights. And that also, number two, a lighting inventory. Well, we don't have to convert or take an inventory if there aren't any lights. So number two is pretty much done. And those are usually the two hardest parts of the certification. So 1 and 2 are almost all the way done here. So that's great. We already have a great head start on getting the certification. Number 3 is the measurement program. So like we saw at the beginning, I showed that light pollution map. We have instruments that we can go out and measure the sky brightness or darkness, however you want to call it. And so it's a matter of going out, coming up with a plan, a program, and going out and taking these measurements multiple times a year at different places. And we want to see where we're at, how dark it is, but also how it's changing over time. Is the light pollution getting better? Is it getting worse? Things like that. It's really to get a baseline so we can see long-term how things are changing. The fourth piece, which I think is probably the most fun, is the outreach events. So that's engaging the community, doing stargazing events and other things. We'll talk about that a little more in a minute. The fifth piece is letters of support. So that's going out to local municipalities or leaders or people who have businesses, all stakeholders who use the area. You get a number of letters of support written to the Dark Sky Association, showing that the community who uses this area does support this effort. And then finally, our annual reports. So these are just needed to, every year you kind of keep up with certain things about what's going on with your dark sky designation. Right now, there is a $250 application fee if you want to become certified, just so you know. So we'll kind of look a little closer at these points. So the first is your Lightscape management plan. And I just put on here on this slide, this is the recent International Dark Sky Association guidance on the 5 principles of responsible outdoor lighting. It's pretty open-ended, if it's not like X amount of lumens and it's not very specific, it's more of a general guidelines. And I think this would be a good place to start with our Lightscape management plan. So is the light useful? Only have it where you need it. Is it targeted? It should be only pointed down. It shouldn't be pointed into the night sky because that's wasting light. Use as low of light levels as possible. You don't need to use super bright lights if you don't need them. Use adaptive controls like motion sensors or timers or dimmers to help keep the light down. And then also use warmer color temperatures, like 3000 Kelvin or lower, because that's less harsh on our eyes and on the circadian rhythm. So it's just kind of those are just 5 principles that we can kind of guide us to responsible lighting, should lighting ever get put into the park anywhere. Hopefully it doesn't. So here's an example of a lighting inventory. Essentially, you take a picture of the light and you kind of write down how many watts, what kind of light it is. So again, not a big issue for Gunnison Gorge, but if we were to put in, if lights were to be put in, we would want to have a lighting inventory on. Here's a photo of the sky quality meter that we use to measure the night sky. It's made by a company called Unihedron, and it measures in those mags per arc second squared, which is the same thing that these light pollution maps are measuring as well. And so, you know, I would expect around Gunnison Gorge, we would see 21.8 would be around an average 21.7 or 21.8. So we'll just have to see once we get the program going, how we're looking. So outreach, this is, you know, one of my favorite parts. So there's a number of things that can be done for outreach. We can do like a dark sky appreciation month or week or festival. Astrophotography is a great outreach event. I know the Colorado Canyons is doing a astrophotography workshop, I think in McInnes Canyon. So you can go on their website and sign up for that. Looks pretty cool. But that would be cool to bring to the Gunnison Gorge as well. An intro to stargazing class. So we have one of those lined up for June 12th, and that's going to be actually in the Gunnison Gorge. So you're welcome to come to that. There'll be more information on that in a little while. Here's kind of a picture of what to expect. You know, we have these cool red lights and green laser beam to point out the stars. It's really a fun experience. Another idea could be like a nocturnal wildlife talk and hike. So, you know, going out at night and talking about the wildlife, listening for birds, stuff like that could be pretty cool. Couple ideas I want to throw out there is, you know, like the Western Slope stand-up paddleboard group does overnight river trips down the Gunnison Gorge, you know, and so talking with them and working with them to create some nice dark sky programs would be great for outreach as well. And then the other idea was the OHV camping. So where those off-highway vehicles like to go by the day, you know, you can dirt bike during the day and then stargaze at night. So that can be a potential place for people to connect with the sky. You know, they're going out to dirt bike and then at night, they're not dirt biking, they're hanging out. They can look through some telescopes and look at the stars, have some outreach programs there as well. And, you know, really just kind of include anyone we can, because usually they're using the park during the day, not at night. So there's kind of this open element we can add in. And this helps, you know, raise awareness throughout the community about the importance of dark skies. And then letters of support. So, you know, we can ask for letters of support from the city of Montrose. The BLM can write a letter of support, Black Canyon Astronomical Society, river outfitters, you know, like businesses or OHV clubs in the area who are using that can write letters of support as well. And this just gets more people on board, more people aware of what's going on. I wanted to touch in quickly, because we're so close to Delta and Montrose, it's a good idea to see what the lighting regulations are for those counties. And I really am happy to see that both Delta County Master Plan and the Montrose Master Plan have the goal of preserving the dark sky resource and minimizing light pollution created by new development. So both Delta and Montrose are aware that this dark sky is a resource and it is a potential draw for tourism, and, you know, can actually equate to tourist dollars and can boost our economy. So it's really great to see that there's at least a foundation for that. You know, my hope is that we can build on these regulations to make them stronger. But hey, this is a great start, and it shows that, you know, we do have some support from the counties in our area. And then finally, our annual reports. So this is an annual report from Sedona, which is a dark sky site. And you just go through and you write down what outreach activities you did that year, any additional lighting that was put in or taken out, any additional light pollution threats, or any other relevant dark sky information and you send that to the International Dark Sky Association. And that's just to keep your certification going. You know, if there is a threat, you're not going to necessarily lose your designation, but it's just something to be aware of. And then kind of just an update, go through the certification process again, what the 6 steps. All right, so we're getting close to the end here, wrapping up. I want to talk about the Intro to Stargazing class that we have coming up on June 12th. So this is hosted by the Colorado Canyons Association, and I am honored. I feel so lucky to be the one teaching the class of stargazing at this location. This is a really cool location. It's at the Gunnison Forks Overlook, and I'll show you a picture of that in a second. It's on Saturday, June 12th, so that's going to be a week from this Saturday coming up. Pretty sure. Yep, today's Tuesday. Okay, so a week from Saturday. Starts at 9 p.m. You know, it doesn't get dark till super late. So 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. And we should be able to see some really cool sights, like the very thin crescent moon is going to be paired up with Venus and Mars, and they'll be setting early on. And then by the end, hopefully we'll be able to see the Milky Way rising to the east. So essentially like millions of suns will be rising off to the east if we're lucky and we have a clear night. So mark your calendars for Saturday, June 12th. And here's directions. So you can see just out of Hotchkiss, just west of Hotchkiss at the Pleasure Park, Gunnison Forks turnoff, there's a nice turn lane there. And instead of going down to the Pleasure Park, you take your first right, and that leads to the Gunnison Forks Overlook. And so this overlook here looks over the confluence of the North Fork of the Gunnison and the Gunnison River. And it's just a really stunning area, very beautiful naturally. And hopefully we'll get some really beautiful view of the stars here. Really looking forward to it. A couple of things to look forward to. So we're gonna do a dark sky treasure hunt. And so there's a list, and I'll bring these for everyone who participates. So there's a list of 15 objects that we're gonna go and we'll point out. I'll point out and show you how to find and tell stories about each one, so you can really connect with the night sky here at the Gunnison Gorge. And so you can see the partners here: Dark Skies Paonia, the Colorado Canyons, Western Slope Conservation Center, International Dark Sky Association, and the U.S. Department of the Interior, BLM, Bureau of Land Management. We're all working together. These are the groups working together to work on this certification. And then this picture on the right, this is one of the coolest things I've seen. So this is a picture, you can see this fuzzy little patch in the middle. It's a star cluster called Omega Centauri. And it's one of the biggest star clusters you can see from planet Earth. However, it's very visible in the southern hemisphere. It's really hard to see in the northern hemisphere. However, from where we are at the Gunnison Gorge, and at the exact right time of when we're going to be there, if we look due south, and if it's a clear sky, we will be able to see Omega Centauri, this very this like cloudy patch. It's essentially a star cluster of like 1 million stars all there. So if you do come on June 12th, please, if you can, bring binoculars, because that will really help you see them. You can bring any kind of binoculars you have, even if it's for like looking at birds or, you know, stuff during the day. They actually work really well at night. So I just wanted to say it's going to be really cool if we get to see Omega Centauri. And there'll be some other really cool star clusters we can look at with binoculars, even if it is a little cloudy to the south. There's going to be tons of stuff we can see. So come on out on June 12th and hang out with us and do some stargazing. All right, and so that's about the end of this presentation. I just want to close up with this gorgeous picture of the Milky Way over Black Canyon. And, you know, night sky conservation, just want to stress it is a very worthwhile and important effort. And I'm really happy to see places in Colorado, Western Colorado, really taking this on. We're really gaining momentum in Colorado right now. There's a lot of work going on many levels on the dark sky movement. And, you know, the Gunnison Gorge would be a great amazing addition to what is already going on in Western Colorado. And, you know, the path to dark sky status is modeled by the national parks and other BLM sites. So we have precedent. We kind of know what we have to do in order to make this happen. All right, and so with that, I guess I'll hand it back to Sarah and we'll do some questions and answers. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Aaron. That makes me really excited to get out this summer and enjoy our night skies, especially in Gunnison Gorge. So if folks have any questions, you can answer them in the questions and answers box at the bottom of your screen or in the chat box. I'll give a couple minutes for people to get those questions in. And in the meantime, as Aaron mentioned, we do have that Intro to Stargazing event going on June 12th. I put the link to the sign up page in the chat box. We only have a couple spots left, so if you are interested, make sure to sign up. And I also put a link just to our general events page so folks can see what else we have going on. So we'll give it a couple minutes for people to get questions in.
I don't know if you noticed, Aaron, but I switched off my background to show off the Black Canyon Park is After Dark print that I have in my office.
Nice, that looks cool, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, if no one has any, oh, here's one. All right, this one is from Chris. And his question is, will dark sky status affect private properties adjacent to the NCA?
I can answer that. So yeah, the private inholdings, they call them, they're not directly affected. They can still have lights and it won't affect the certification. However, conversely, you know, I think if people find out there's a dark sky park right where they are, generally they are cooperative and, you know, want to cooperate and reduce light pollution just because they know what's going on in that area and there's stargazing events and stuff like that. But as far, you know, but that isn't necessary and it won't affect the certification if there are private places.
There's no enforcement associated with the that status.
Right.
Great. All right, we have another question from Sherry. She's asking if communities like Montrose and Delta grow and their light pollution increases, would that threaten the dark sky status?
Not necessarily. You know, like Tucson, Arizona is a dark sky city. So it's not about necessarily like being the darkest place. It's about doing these steps, like having the outreach and the education. Like that's really important, especially if there is a really close threat like Delta or Montrose. Having the dark sky park right next door is actually good for dark skies because of the education component. So it would, you know, it would have to be really bad to lose a park. I think what, you know, there's dark sky sanctuaries and stuff that are much more sensitive, and they would have a better chance of losing the, you know, the sanctuary status if they go below a certain threshold. But as far as a park, we're not in any danger at the moment. It'd have to get really bad, and it would have to essentially, you'd have to have lights like in the actual park, violating, you know, the Lightscape management plan that we have. And so, yeah, if Montrose and Delta do get bigger and they keep growing, it will not affect the certification of our dark sky status at this moment anyway, not anytime soon.
Good to know. All right, any more questions? All right, I'm not seeing any other questions come in, but you can, you know, if any questions come up in the meantime, you can find Aaron at our Intro to Stargazing event, or, you know, reach out to him online. I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any more questions that come up. So we hope to see everyone out at one of our events later on this summer. And we're really excited for this application for Gunnison Gorge to become a dark sky park. You know, we know it'll take some time, but we'll keep everyone posted on the status and make sure to continue these outreach and education events in the meantime. So once again, thank you so much, Aaron, for that great presentation and working with us on some other events. Ed, thank you for being on here. And thank you everyone for joining us this evening. I'll be sending out a recording of this presentation tomorrow if you'd like to watch it again or share it with friends. And once again, we hope to see you in the future. Thanks everyone, have a good night.
Thank you, good night.